These paintings, filled with naked male bodies and heavy symbolism, were considered an insult to the Third Reich. Works like these were removed from galleries and exhibitions. To display something like this was seen as offensive, even dangerous. But why? After all, artists from the same symbolist movement, like Arnold Böcklin or Franz von Stuck, fascinated the regime. What was different about Sascha Schneider? What did he do to be persecuted and erased from history? Sascha Schneider was born in St. Petersburg in 1870 into a German family settled in Russia. His childhood changed drastically when, after the death of his father in 1884, his mother moved with him and his sister to Dresden. From that moment on, Germany became his home and the stage where he would develop and establish his career as an artist. From a very young age, he showed great talent for drawing and painting. In 1889, he entered the Dresden Academy of Fine Arts, where he absorbed all the academic techniques available. Yet soon, he began to feel constrained by the institution's traditional rules. Schneider was searching for something different. He wanted to paint his own ideas and hide messages within his works, an ambition that would later make him one of the most distinctive voices of German symbolism. By 1894, he was already exhibiting publicly, and shortly after, he was invited to become a professor at the Weimar Art School, a remarkable recognition for someone his age. However, his personal life was becoming increasingly risky. Schneider was homosexual at a time when the law persecuted it. In 1908, a former lover tried to blackmail him by threatening to expose his orientation. Such a scandal could have cost him his reputation and even his freedom. He decided to resign his position and flee to Italy, where he found refuge, though he never stopped carrying the tension of knowing he was vulnerable in his own country. Years later, he returned to Dresden, where he worked tirelessly not only as a painter, but also as a promoter of physical culture. He founded the Kraft Kunst School, a lyceum focused on aesthetics, which, in its male section, combined artistic training with physical exercise and education. His work stood out for their study of the naked male body, always from a symbolist perspective. They also revealed his fascination with hypnosis, magnetism, and mystery, recurring themes of the fin de siècle imagination. In 1927, during a trip through the Baltic Sea, a diabetic thirst crisis led him to accidentally drink a toxic liquid. The collapse was fatal. Schneider died at only 56 years old. I share all of this at the beginning of the video because it's key to understanding the work of this artist. Beyond simply mentioning his sexuality, as the video unfolds, you'll see why it becomes so important. What set Sascha Schneider apart from other painters of his time were the themes he chose to paint. He was influenced by Nietzsche and by artists like Max Klinger, who were already working with visions filled with metaphor. But Schneider took those ideas and transformed them into something far more personal. In his paintings, the male body is always the protagonist, and he didn't represent it casually. It's athletic, muscular, almost as if carved from ancient Greek sculpture. For him, the body was a symbol. It could mean strength, freedom, vulnerability, or even desire. And at a time when homosexuality was a crime, using art to display naked bodies was his way of expressing what he could not say openly. His works also reveal a blend of classical references and raw human emotion. Scenes that resemble mythology, like Icarus falling from the sky, become metaphors about ambition and failure. At other times, dominant and submissive figures appear, embodying dependence, fear, or power. What fascinates me most about this artist is how he managed to fuse everything together. The academic technique he mastered so perfectly, the classical mythology that gave his art a recognizable frame, and the allegories that turned every painting into a hidden message. That's why his works still strike us so strongly today. After his death in 1927, Schneider's work did not share the fate of other great artists of his time. For a few years, his paintings still circulated in exhibitions and private collections, but soon they were marginalized and pushed into oblivion. With the rise of the regime in 1933, the situation became even more dramatic. Schneider was placed among the group of artists whose work was labeled as degenerate art, a term used to ridicule anything that did not conform to the official aesthetic. In 1937, with the infamous Entartete Kunst exhibition in Munich, many of his paintings were confiscated, removed from museums, and in some cases destroyed. The homoerotic themes of his work were one of the main reasons for the attempt to erase his name from German art history. The male nudes he painted as symbols of strength, desire, and freedom were reinterpreted as examples of moral corruption. That intolerant gaze turned Schneider into a cultural enemy, though he was no longer alive to defend himself. For decades, almost nothing was said about him. His paintings disappeared into private collections, others were lost forever, and many were deliberately hidden. It was not a lack of talent that erased him from collective memory, but the intolerance of a system that could not accept what his art represented. Fortunately, some of his most well-known paintings survived, and looking at them today allows us to better understand who he was and what he sought to express. One of his most talked about works is Hypnosis, painted in 1904. I won't go too deep into this one here, since some time ago we already analyzed it on the channel. If you want to learn more, I invite you to check out that video. Another of his most recognized works is The Feeling of Dependence, where a naked young man appears subdued under the shadow of a monstrous figure. This can be read as a direct allegory of fear and oppression, the sensation of being trapped by forces larger than oneself. In Mammon and His Slave, Schneider delivers a sharp critique of greed and corruption. Mammon, the demonic embodiment of money, is shown chaining a man who has lost his freedom. As always, the metaphor is clear. Material ambition turns us into slaves. However, my favorite work by Schneider is Triumph of Darkness. In this painting, we see Christ lying almost rigid on what resembles a funeral bier. His pale body dominates the lower part of the canvas, while above him rises a demonic figure. This figure is a muscular male with black wings spread wide, gazing down with a mixture of pride and cold detachment. In one hand he holds a spear, and with the other he rests on his hip, like a guard watching over a conquered trophy. Reading the title, the artist leaves no doubt about the meaning. Darkness triumphs over light. This painting is nearly 2 meters tall by 3 meters wide, making it even more imposing. And as a curiosity, not only does the original canvas survive today, but during his lifetime, Schneider allowed this work to be reproduced as wood engravings in the late 1890s. This helped spread the image widely, making it one of the most famous of its time. The original, however, remains in a private collection, which only adds to its aura of mystery. Between its monumental scale and the intensity of its subject, this work stands as one of the most powerful expressions of German symbolism, an image of a world where, at least for a moment, darkness seems to have won. Now, I'd love to hear what you think about this artist and whether you had seen his work before. You can share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to have one of Schneider's paintings in your own collection, you'll find a link in the description to his collection, where you can choose your favorite piece and decorate your home with it. The video you're watching is an example of how you can transform your house into a personal museum and live surrounded by true works of art. Shipping is free worldwide, and by purchasing, you'll also be supporting me so I can continue creating more videos like this. Thank you so much for staying until the end. See you in the next video.